Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Dion and today we're going to be talking about if we can consciously and sustainably follow micro trends and niche aesthetics. So if you haven't watched my videos before, my channel's main focus is on niche aesthetics that come out through Tumblr, Pinterest, TikTok, etc. This video was inspired by Shanspeare.
I'd like to start with the Rorschach test today, if that's all right with you, M. Shanspeare.
That's fine, Doctor.
What do you see when you look at this picture? Dark academia. All right, and this? Royal core. And how about this? Princess Fairy Castle with a pink ribbon tied to the turret core.
Who recently came out with a video on our obsession with niche aesthetics. She went at it from like actually a pretty neutral lens, but like she went over a lot of like the critiques of niche aesthetics as to like how they can be culturally insensitive, how we feel that we need to force ourselves into a specific box, how it promotes hyper-consumerism and micro trends. And that is all like very true. Our trend cycle is so fast right now that it's insane. However, I also understand the want to follow these niche aesthetics. And so I wanted to do a video talking about and giving you tips as to how we can still follow trends and follow these niche aesthetics while also being like conscious and sustainable about it and not promoting hyper consumerism. So before we get into it, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. I post videos every Thursday. In light of the recent events in the United States, all of the money that this video specifically makes is gonna be split evenly between the American Civil Liberties Union, which have taken on cases like Loving versus Virginia and other like pivotal Supreme Court cases when it comes to civil rights, Planned Parenthood, and Everytown, which is an organization that works to pass common sense gun laws. It felt weird to just like old money aesthetic when this all just happened, so I wanted a more conversational piece before we just get back into style analysis videos after this horrendous week for the Supreme Court. And yeah, so all the money from this video, which I don't make a lot, will be split evenly every month between those three organizations. I will also have links down below to abortion funds, to the ACLU, and to Everytown down below. So if you want to personally donate, that is also available to you. And without further ado, let's get into it. So like I said, Shanspeare did like a video essay on our obsession with aesthetics and how it's becoming like a hot topic among fashion commentators, and just like journalists in general have been talking about the pros and cons to all these niche micro aesthetics. And a huge reason why I like turned my channel into what it is today, which is like a fashion commentary channel mostly talking about niche aesthetics, is that I personally love the idea of niche aesthetics, because when I was starting in my YouTube channel, I didn't necessarily relate to content creators that participated in aesthetics via like fast fashion or thrifting all the time, like thrift hauls every single week. I also found that like often with videos that talked about aesthetics, they kept the images very one note, in the sense like they would only use inspo images from thin and white women. And it's always been really important to me to be critical of the aesthetics that I talk about. Some of you actually say that I'm too critical, but I want to bring light to the problems that align with each trend and try to show as much representation as possible. And I'm just not the type of person that will buy clothes that I'm not 100% serious on keeping. Like it takes me a while to like buy something. And so when I was first starting in my channel, like trying to find sort of my whole of the internet, because I just like couldn't relate to creators like Darling Desi, where they like live, breathe, and die by their aesthetic, but I also couldn't relate to creators like Alexis Sunshine 83 or Jenna Phipps because I just don't go thrifting that often. So I was sort of trying to find where, and I love channels like Mina Lay and Shanspeare, so I was trying to find my niche, and commenting on like trending aesthetics is what I landed on, and I personally love it, and we'll get into that later. But I asked over on my Instagram at @DionTheTaurus what you guys thought about niche aesthetics, pros, cons, all of that. And I just wanted to, just like in the uniform video, read to you guys what y'all said because it's fun and important. So right off the bat, I asked, do you like the super specific Tumblr, Pinterest, TikTok aesthetics? 70% said, yeah, it's fun to dress like a character. 22% said they were neutral. 9% said they're annoying. 0% said they were problematic, which obviously this sample size is small and skewed. There's definitely like a lot of problematic issues around niche aesthetics. Then I asked for like praise of niche aesthetics. One person say they're great when looking into certain styles and what makes them niche, and so researching like culturally what exactly is this style. And someone else said, feels like I'm creating an entire new life/fantasy world in my head instead of just an outfit, which I love, and I'll touch on that. And in terms of criticism, one of the main points was sustainability. Hoarding isn't peaceful, no storage space, like constantly buying new trends isn't good. Niche aesthetics mostly tend to romanticize problematic parts of history or ideals. Fair. It's like people dressing in 50s clothes and not saying that they disagree with the social climate of that time. So like a lot of common phrases, vintage clothes, not vintage values, but that makes sense. If a lot of people are wearing vintage, it's like, why are you celebrating this time where there was like segregation and stuff? Someone else said, quite a few are really problematic and often get taken over by white people when they get popular, especially when they start as with people of color. And then finally I asked, is it possible to consciously participate in these niche aesthetics in a way that minimizes or avoids consumerism and exclusion? 44% said yes, 44% said maybe a little, and 11% said not really. So maybe this video will change your mind, maybe it won't, but thank you guys for sharing your thoughts and comments with me. Definitely follow me on Instagram because I've been enjoying kind of including y'all's 2 cents in my videos when I'm just like discussing things, so do that. So now I'm gonna go through sort of how we can consciously follow these trends and aesthetics. And the first thing is that we need to reframe the way that we view these aesthetics. As I got on Tumblr as a teen and more into aesthetics in my mid-20s, I felt so validated in the rise of the aesthetic obsession. For as long as I could remember, I've always sort of tried to use clothing as a costume. Picking out my clothes was like picking out what character I was gonna be. A damaged hipster, a preppy sorority girl, an Avril Lavigne wannabe, a vintage ghost from the 60s. When I get dressed, I think like, what's the vibe I'm going for? I have this like vivid image or memory in my head of when I was a kid and I was wearing like blue shoes, blue pants, blue top. Like I was wearing blue on blue on blue on blue on blue. And my mom was like, Dion, just because it's blue, it doesn't match. And I was probably like 7 or 8. And I was like, Mom? Because I was like, I'm going for a monochromatic look. Like, don't mess with my aesthetic. But it's just since I was a kid, I've been very like, this is the look I'm going for. One time I dressed as Avril Lavigne going to 4th grade for dress down day. I wore a tie. It was lit. Like someone whose default setting is a little bit quiet and shy, I enjoy making my clothing really like bright and welcoming and whatever, because then I feel like it's a nice conversation starter and it also just gives me the confidence. For example, like if it's a day where I'm going to the library to edit for a few hours, I'm like, okay, let me like put on a plaid skirt, maybe a button down top, some loafers, like a leather saddle bag. Like I try to go full dark academia with it because I want to be the mysterious hot girl at the library. If I'm going to the bakery, maybe I put on a little espadrilles, a cute little sundress, put my hair up in a little messy bun and be like French girl moment going to the bakery. Like I love creating the entire cinematic experience. seeing the rise of aesthetics feels like people are viewing clothing in a similar way that I've felt that I've always viewed clothing. And so as a Taurus, people agreeing with how I think, I love to see it. But sadly, this has contributed to micro trends and hyper consumerism. So I want to talk about like trends versus aesthetics. As someone who grew up thrifting and didn't grow up in a shopaholic family, that just wasn't really my family's style, living out a character or a costume idea I had in my head about an outfit never had much to do with the specific items of clothing I had to purchase. It was about the vibe and the attitude. Again, like I remember putting on like a Roxy sun shirt with one of my brother's ties and green cargo pants and being like Avril Lavigne. Of course, there are staple pieces in different aesthetics, like a Lily Pulitzer item for the preppy aesthetic or corsets for cottagecore. But I think the problem of like how we view niche aesthetics now is that they're vehicles for more consumption rather than a framework and a tone that you set for your day via your clothing. We're all born naked and the rest is drag. And that's how I feel about when I dress, is like, what type of drag am I doing today? Now I'm gonna go through tips that we can sustainably and consciously participate in niche aesthetics, because I obviously really like them. And the first thing is that you have to ensure that your closet is yours. And what I mean by this is that there should be nothing in your closet that you keep for a skinny day, or I can't wear these when I'm bloated, or I only look good in this when I'm tan. Your clothes are meant to serve you. You are not made to serve your clothes. So every single thing that you have in your closet should fit you, should make you look confident, should make you look good, and should make you feel confident and good. Even if it's a Taylor Swift t-shirt that you wear to bed, it should be a t-shirt that brings you joy. Not to be like Marie Kondo or whatever, but it is so hard to fight against hyperconsumerism when you are unsatisfied with the clothes that you have. When I look at my closet, I genuinely love every single piece that is there, and I wear it often. I wear it seasonally, and that's really the goal of like finding your personal style and like feeling confident whenever you put on clothing. That's only gonna happen if all of your clothing without fail makes you feel good. You need to get rid of clothing that you can only wear if you lose 10 pounds, that you can only wear if, like, that's such nonsense. Do not do that. You should be able to throw on any single one of your garments on your worst self-esteem day, and it should fit and it should make you feel good. Like that, you need to ensure that your closet is yours. Keeping around clothes that you don't like or don't fit keeps you trapped in a cycle of buying new things because you hate what you have. You feel unsatisfied in your closet, so you seek it out elsewhere rather than focusing on making sure that all your pieces that you already own are something that you like and that fits. Also, if you love all your clothes and they all make you feel good, it'll be way easier to build an aesthetic outfit on what you already own rather than feeling like you need to purchase something else because you're like, oh, I already love every single thing that I have. So like, twice a year, usually like at the end of summer and at the end of winter, I like go through my closet and make sure, like, just see if there's like any dead weight. And like usually there's a few items that I do end up like giving away or selling on Depop. But my closet has been the way it is, like with the same sort of clothes for probably 4 years now. Like, and I add in a few clothes and I give away some clothes, but like in general, that's how it is. Like my best friend always thinks, she's like, oh, is that new? I haven't seen that before. And I'm like, I've worn this 6 times, but I just do it in such vastly different ways that she doesn't even detect that I've been outfit repeating, because I am just using my favorite clothing pieces in different ways because they make me feel good, they make me look good, and I can switch them up. Just make sure everything in your closet is something that you love, that makes you feel good, that makes you look good. And the whole like keep it minimalist capsule wardrobe, no. I mean, I literally don't have anything that's solid. Everything is floral and pink and like versatile, so don't listen to that. It should make you look good, it should make you feel good, it should make you happy. That's all. But you have, before we even get into the rest of the aesthetics, you have to start with like making sure your closet is just like, it brings you joy rather than stress and overwhelmingness. The second thing that we need to discuss when you are trying to consciously and sustainably follow niche aesthetics is that you need to follow BIPOC creators and diversify your feed. It is so easy to complain that the biggest problem of niche aesthetics is the thin whiteness part of it, but you have to also take personal responsibility in dismantling your own internalized biases and making a conscious effort to find BIPOC creators, plus size creators within the aesthetic you're trying to emulate. I talk about this in my style analysis videos a lot, where I'll say like, it was really hard to find representation for this aesthetic, or it was really easy to find representation for this aesthetic. But every single style analysis video that I do, I have to purposely go out of my way to make sure that I am including everyone. And that is also your job too when you are if you're into aesthetics and fashion, like let's say cottagecore, make sure you follow BIPOC and plus size cottagecore creators, dark academia, etc., because it's very easy to just see the popularized thin white creators of that emulate that aesthetic. If you're only seeing like thin white women emulate that aesthetic, it's going to be hard to mimic that aesthetic with the clothes that you have, because you're only sort of seeing one way to wear the aesthetic. But when you diversify it among ethnicities, races, sizes, you'll find ways to incorporate the aesthetic in a much more like fluid and dynamic way, because it's not like, oh, this aesthetic is only for thin white women and this is what they wear. You'll be able to see how plus size women implement that aesthetic, how Latina people implement that aesthetic. Like, it's just, when you diversify even as a thin white woman myself, most of the cottagecore creators that I follow are BIPOC creators because I like their style, and for me, it helps me know about brands that are size inclusive. It helps me just figure out more ways to wear the clothes that I have, because I'm seeing it differently on different people. So even though we're under the umbrella of the same aesthetic, I can see more versatile ways rather than just the Pinterest beauty standard. I'm editing this, like finalizing it, and I just realized a great example of this is that I have followed for a few years and absolutely worship Toby Continued, who is an Orthodox Jewish woman. I mean, and I'm kind of religious, and I follow her, and she is, follows all of the laws, because she teaches me how to layer effectively, especially in like winter time when it's cold. Like, the way she uses clothing and layers and everything, it inspires me to be like way more funky. It's maximalist. It helps me use all my clothes trans-seasonally. Like, even though I don't have the same dress code rules as she does, I gain a lot of things from following her. This will allow you to get away from the white supremacy that permeates in fashion and culture and get back to the meat of the romanticized aesthetic. So, for example, like Coquette is notoriously very thin and pale, which takes away from the positives of celebrating girlhood and just like the joyousness of hyper femininity. Following plus size and black coquette influencers helps shift the idealized aesthetic from only looking one way to how to emulate it in a variety of ways. The algorithm is racist and fatphobic as hell, so you do need to make the effort into boosting BIPOC creators, because they are often the creators of the aesthetics that become trendy regardless, and they don't get the credit. So not only should you diversify your feed so you can get more ideas on how to implement different aesthetics, but also because most of the time it's BIPOC creators that invented the aesthetic and then it was co-opted by thin white women. So it's a twofer. You got to do it. You'll get more ideas. You'll be dismantling your internal biases. You'll be helping the algorithm in boosting BIPOC creators, and you'll be giving credit to BIPOC creators who often shape culture and trends. Number 3, you have to reframe the way you think about aesthetics. Instead of like framing these niche aesthetics as micro trends, where it's like everybody's wearing the House of Sunny Hockney dress. You shouldn't think, what is she wearing so I can buy that exact thing? You should ask yourself, where is she going? What kind of coffee does she drink? What's her skincare routine? What's her favorite movie? The costume doesn't make the character. You have to do some sort of like method acting to really get into the aesthetic. Like I said, when I'm going to the library to edit, I'm like, okay, I have the stage. Now let me do the costume of like, who am I trying to be? Mysterious girl in the corner editing with all these books. Like that, you have to, yeah, it's like method acting. When you have a well-rounded idea of the aesthetic you're going for, the outfit will naturally come together because you know what that type of person would pull from your closet. So if I'm being the messy French girl, I can look at my closet and be like, this is what a messy French girl would pull from what I have. Aesthetics are a framework, not a cage. They're an inspiration, not a definition. There's no one way to be an aesthetic, nor should you define your life around an aesthetic. Be careful about curating your feed and in turn your life to be impossibly strict, because it suspends its disbelief, and you're not just this fantasy aesthetic. You're a dynamic, multifaceted human being. So try not to over curate and try and stay in like such a tight box of the aesthetic you're going for, because breaking the rules of aesthetics you like is how you make it your own. Number 4 is that you have to understand with aesthetics that there is overlap. Even I started making this like aesthetic family tree for my old money video, and it's so fascinating like how many mood boards for different aesthetics use the same photos and motifs, like coquette and messy French girl and rockstar girlfriend and old money. And I mean, like, it's so many things overlap, and so when you can see and notice the overlap, it'll minimize the need for like overconsumption, because you'll be like, oh, this has a similar vibe to this, which I know how to dress in, and blah blah blah. But if you think about like all these aesthetics only existing in a vacuum, you'll feel more pressured to buy new things when really there's so much overlap and wiggle room to bleed into it. So yeah, 3 and 4 is, don't be so strict about aesthetics. They're not micro trends. They're just like a framework for you to get dressed in, and understand that with the millions of aesthetics there are, 99% of them overlap with 5 other aesthetics. Number 5 is to be critical of the trending aesthetic. Try to think of it from a BIPOC point of view, from an NB point of view, from a plus size point of view. And I mean, I've gotten comments being like, we get it, Dion, you're trying to be woke, okay? Like, calm down, it's not that deep. But it's simply critical thinking, just to think about things from other people's point of view. Fashion is culture, and analyzing and questioning culture is a good thing. You are just thinking critically. I choose to be very overly critical in my fashion videos because I don't want people to blindly follow an aesthetic without realizing how that fashion trends impacts different people. Aesthetics are about romanticizing every little thing in life, whether it's morning walks or going to the library or going to a bakery. You have to be critical about romanticizing every single thing, or else we end up with teen films about 2 cancer patients getting horny in the Anne Frank house, or 15-year-old girls romanticizing being with a 60-year-old man. It's cancer season, you guys, so it's okay to be empathetic and think about how other people are feeling. It's not being overly woke or overly sensitive. It's just like, oh, how would this person feel about this aesthetic? How would this person? It's literally just thinking critically, understanding other people's point of view. But you have to do that when you follow aesthetics, or else you can just get into like the 2010 boho trend, which was just like 90% cultural appropriation. Number 6, you picked a niche aesthetic. Let's just say dark academia. So now you want to plan that character's day in your head. Even if you're not going to do all of that, think about what they would do in this fantasy life, where they're going. What time do they wake up? What kind of breakfast are they getting? What's the plan for the day? What textures and colors are common in that aesthetic? Is it a lot of silks and sequins and metallics like in a rockstar girlfriend? Or is it more linens and cottons like in a coastal grandmother? Like, think about the textures and the colors that are included in the trend and also what activities they're doing, because if you know what activities they're doing, you'll know what they need to wear. Are you being whisked away by a hot Italian guy on a Vespa? Then you might want to wear a sundress with some safety shorts underneath. Or you spending all day in a library reading book, then you might need a cardigan because libraries get cold. Stuff like that. It helps you when you think about the holistic part of the character of that niche aesthetic. It is easier to figure out what clothing items you're going to wear, like I mentioned before. You want to use this framework to set the tone for your own outfit. And you want to pick from your own closet always, or at least borrow things. But trust me, like, your closet is a lot better than you think it is. You just need to like really be intentional about it. Number 7 on how to consciously and sustainably follow niche aesthetics. You know, have your character you've picked from your own closet, but like, I'm really into cottagecore and I don't have a corset and I would really love a corset. First thing you want to do is obviously buy secondhand. Depop, Poshmark, ThredUp, thrift stores. I talk about these places all the time. I only shop secondhand. I can shop the trendiest brands, the most sought after items, and I can get them secondhand. I got my Doc Marten secondhand. I got my corset that was made from vintage dead stock fabric. Like, it is possible to follow trends and get things secondhand. For aesthetic things, that I really like, I'll often opt for a secondhand dupe that is cheaper rather than the actual aesthetic item. That way, if after a year or two I really like that item and it's kind of worn down, I can invest in a secondhand like real pair. So for example, like, I really like the idea of like chunky black like boots, and so I got this $30 pair secondhand that were sort of like a Doc Marten knockoff, and I wore them to shreds. And so when it came this past winter, I was like, I know that I'm going to wear proper Doc Martens all the time, platform Doc Martens, because I wore these knockoffs all the time. And so I pulled the plug into investing in a pair of actual Doc Martens because I knew I was going to wear them, even though like chunky black boots were a trend 2 years ago. I wore them to death, so I know that I can rebuy it. So with things like corsets or blazers or something, if there's something that you really like, let's say like a Durf Avenue blazer, get a similar blazer secondhand, see if you really like it and wear it that often, and if you do, when it's time for you to let the first one that you got go, then you know, and you can consciously and confidently purchase the not knockoff version because you know that you'll wear it and then you know you'll like it. So that's also a thing, is like not only buying secondhand, but go maybe the cheaper knockoff version first, especially when it comes to micro trends and aesthetics. And if you really like it, then the next year, when that item is worn down or you're ready to switch it out, you can invest in a higher quality piece, knowing that it'll be worn and used. And again, when you are looking to buy things, you have to remember the colors, textures, activities, not specific items. Focusing on like, I'm doing coquette, so I want to buy a white lace cami, can set you up for failure when there's not those things in your size at the thrift store or for a decent price point. Going in with like a color palette for coquette, so pinks, blushes, ivories, black, textures, accents, and motifs, so bows, silks, satins, lace, activities, picnics, being girly. This will not only broaden your options, but allow you to emulate the aesthetic in your own way, and that's not just a carbon copy. Because when you just are like going to a thrift store to look for a specific like white lace cami, the likelihood that you'll find that in your size at a decent price point is small. But if you're looking for things that are blush toned with silk, satin, bow, and lace details, that broadens it a lot more. Number 8 in consciously and sustainably following niche aesthetics is that you only want to buy what you'll actually use. It's very easy to fill up your closet with secondhand corsets, but understanding what you'll actually wear is super important. So like when I got really into cottagecore, I really wanted a corset, but I hate the feeling of bras. I hate the feeling of anything under, like a band right here. I hate that feeling. And so when looking at different like corsets, either on Depop that were people selling their Amazon corsets that were cheaply made or whatever, I realized that like the most likely type of corset that I would wear would be an underbust corset. And so that made me choose that one rather than the full yank corset that everyone else has, because I was like, if I'm buying this, I want to give myself the best shot of wearing this the most often. So like be self-aware enough. And now I've worn that underbust corset so much that I know that I'm ready for the full like actual corset, if that makes sense. Make sure that the item that you're thinking of getting is versatile with what you already have and that you'll like and what you'll wear. And also bookmark it for a month and see if you still want it by then. Or keep like a thrift list and notice what things you take off the list and what things have stayed on it for a while to avoid impulsive purchases. So like I've had cottagecore teapot on my thrift list for a while, like looking for a new teapot, and I haven't really been able to find it. So now I know like I can go on like Etsy or Depop and purchase one of the cottagecore teapots that I have saved and bookmarked because I've had it on my thrift list for a while. I haven't been able to find it. I can now buy it online because I know that I really want it. It's lasted more than a month. But slow down, no impulsive purchases. Number 9 into how to consciously and sustainably follow niche aesthetics is that you have to listen to feedback. The internet can be very dumb and very horrible, and some people are just like so chronically online. However, when you're participating in something cultural, like fashion, clothing is cultural, it's important to listen to the feedback people are giving you, specifically from marginalized groups, with an open mind. Try not to be defensive, even if they're attacking the aesthetic or whatever. Hear it out from their perspective, because those conversations can only lead us to a place that is more inclusive. Again, with the bohemian trend of like the 2010s, it was so appropriative. And so it's not about attacking the hippie bohemian lifestyle, but like we have to listen to the valid concerns that people have, even if you disagree with them, even if it's chronically online or whatever. Clothing is cultural, so you want to make sure that you're listening to the feedback that you're getting from people. It's just, you gotta do it. And number 10 onto how to consciously and sustainably follow niche aesthetics is that you should support your friend's exploration of aesthetics. My best friend Maria and I, we always joke that we're like Mary-Kate and Ashley, because when we dress together, we look separate, but like we go together. So either like the princess and like the rock star girl, or we're doing like, I'm doing an orange and pink motif, she's doing a blue and purple motif, like kind of, I don't know, going into pairs. And or like when I help my friend Blair get dressed, I'll be like, okay, so what's the vibe that you're going for? And she'll be like, I'm going for like New York, classic, Diane Keaton, blah, blah. You get the whole character and you help them do it. Because when you help your friends get into a character, it not only helps yourself visualize different aesthetics on different types of people, but it also helps create a safe space where you can truly dress up in a costume with your friends and they'll totally get the vibe and support you. And it'll also help you find community in the aesthetics that you like. And if you find community and common ground, then you'll be able to listen to feedback, then you'll be able to borrow all the other things that I already mentioned. I hope you enjoyed these 10 tips I have for consciously and sustainably following niche aesthetics. I hope it like reframed how you think of niche aesthetics instead of like micro trends as like a framework for how you get dressed, and that it's like a character and you want to be method acting, not just like copying exactly what the character is. I love picking out a costume when I get dressed. I love picking out a character and a vibe and who I want to be that day. I think it's so fun. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up because I post videos every Thursday. Follow me on TikTok and Instagram because I post content there almost every single day. Oh, and contact your local representatives to support the Judicial Ethics Act, which would help all Supreme Court justices follow a code of ethics, just like every other federal court judge. The Supreme Court's the only one that doesn't do it. Also contact your reps to help save abortion rights in your state. And also we'll let them know that you want to expand the courts to 13 to represent the 13 districts or 13 circuits. Make sure you tell them that you want common sense gun laws, and feel free to donate to abortion funds, the ACLU, or Everytown down below. And with that, Have a happy, happy day.